It was a typical Tuesday afternoon when Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, decided to stop at a McDonald's in downtown San Francisco. He had just finished a long meeting with investors and felt the need for a quick meal before heading back to his office. The restaurant was busy but not crowded, with the usual mix of tourists, office workers, and locals getting their fast food fix. Pichai stood in line, scrolling through emails on his phone. He rarely had moments like this, simple, normal activities that regular people did every day. As the CEO of one of the world's most valuable companies, his schedule was typically packed with meetings, decision-making, and global travel. This small break felt refreshing. When it was his turn to order, Pichai looked up from his phone and froze. The man behind the counter, wearing the standard McDonald's uniform and a name tag that read Robert, looked strangely familiar. He was in his early 50s, with salt and pepper hair and tired but intelligent eyes. There was something about his precise movements and the way he organized the orders that struck Pichai as unusual for a fast food worker. "Can I take your order, sir?" the man asked, not making eye contact as he prepared the register. That voice. Pichai knew that voice. He studied the man's face more carefully, trying to place him. Then it hit him like a bolt of lightning. "Robert Chen?" Pichai asked, his voice filled with disbelief. The man looked up, startled. His eyes widened with recognition, then quickly darted around the restaurant as if checking who might be watching. "Mr. Pichai," he said quietly. What a surprise. Robert Chen had been a brilliant director at Google just 4 years ago. He had led the development of several important projects and was known for his exceptional leadership skills. His team had created innovations that generated billions in revenue for the company. Then, without much explanation, he had resigned and disappeared from the tech world entirely. "I'll take a quarter-pounder meal," Pichai said, trying to act normal despite his shock. "And maybe we can talk when you have a break." Chen nodded slightly. "I get off at 3. There's a coffee shop next door." Pichai found a table and ate his meal slowly, his mind racing with questions. How did Robert Chen, once earning a high six-figure salary with stock options worth millions, end up working the counter at McDonald's? The man had been brilliant, with degrees from MIT and Stanford, and a resume that included positions at Apple and Microsoft before joining Google. At 3 o'clock, Pichai watched as Chen removed his McDonald's cap and walked out the side door. He followed him to the small coffee shop next door. The place was nearly empty, and they found a quiet table in the corner. "I never expected to see you again, especially not like this," Pichai said after they had ordered their coffees. Chen smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. "Life takes unexpected turns, Mr. Pichai. One day you're presenting to the board about the future of technology, and the next," he gestured to his McDonald's uniform. Pichai leaned forward. "What happened, Robert? You were one of our best." Chen took a deep breath, looked down at his coffee, and began to tell his story, one that would soon lead Pichai to make a decision that would change both their lives. Robert Chen stirred his coffee slowly, gathering his thoughts. The small coffee shop was quiet except for the occasional hiss of the espresso machine. Pichai waited patiently, giving his former colleague the time he needed. "It started with my wife's diagnosis," Chen finally said. "Advanced pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave her 8 months." His voice remained steady, but his fingers tightened around the coffee cup. "You remember Maria, right? She came to the company picnic that summer." Pichai nodded. He remembered Maria Chen as a vibrant woman with a quick laugh who had charmed everyone she met. "I tried to keep working, but her condition got worse quickly. The treatments were experimental and not covered by insurance. Even with my Google salary and savings, the medical bills piled up fast." Chen took a sip of his coffee. "I needed to be there for her and our daughter. Lily was only 12 then." Pichai listened as Chen explained how he had taken a leave of absence at first. But as the months stretched on and Maria's condition worsened, he made the difficult decision to resign. He needed to focus entirely on his family during their crisis. Maria fought hard. She lived for 14 months after the diagnosis, much longer than the doctors expected. A faint smile crossed Chen's face. She was always stubborn. After Maria's death, Chen found himself emotionally exhausted, with depleted savings and a daughter who needed stability. He had sold their house in Palo Alto to cover the remaining medical bills and moved to a small apartment in the city. "I thought getting back into tech would be easy, Chen continued, looking out the coffee shop window. I had the experience, the track record. But things change fast in our industry. During his 2-year absence, the technologies Chen had specialized in had evolved. Younger engineers had taken his place. Companies were hesitant to hire someone who had been out of the field, especially when they learned about his family situation. They never said it directly, but I could see it in their eyes during interviews. They wondered if I was emotionally stable enough, if I would need to take time off for my daughter. Chen shrugged. Maybe they were right to worry. After 6 months of rejections and dwindling savings, Chen had to make a difficult choice. Pride or survival. McDonald's was hiring. They offered flexible hours so I could be home when Lily returned from school. He smiled slightly. The manager was impressed by my organizational skills. Said I ran the drive-through like a well-oiled machine. Pichai nodded, understanding. And your daughter? How is she doing now? Chen's face brightened. Lily is amazing. She's 16 now and top of her class. She wants to study computer science, just like her dad. His expression grew serious again. That's what keeps me going. I need to make sure she can go to college. Do you still code? Pichai asked. Every night, after Lily goes to bed, I stay up learning the new frameworks, languages. I've been working on a project too. Chen hesitated, then added, nothing important. Just a tool to help small businesses manage their online presence more efficiently. Pichai leaned forward, his interest clearly piqued. Tell me more about this project. Chen hesitated. It's nothing compared to what we built at Google. Just something to keep my skills sharp. I'd still like to hear about it, Pichai insisted. As Chen began explaining his project, his demeanor changed. The tired fast food worker disappeared, and glimpses of the brilliant director emerged. His hands moved animatedly as he described the architecture and potential applications. Pichai listened intently, his mind already forming a plan. By the time Chen finished speaking, Pichai knew exactly what he wanted to do next. As Chen explained his project in more detail, Pichai's expression changed from polite interest to genuine excitement. What had started as a simple tool to help small businesses manage their online presence had evolved into something much more innovative. The problem with current solutions, Chen explained, leaning forward, is that they're all designed for tech-savvy users. Most small business owners, the local baker, the neighborhood plumber, the family restaurant, they don't have time to learn complicated systems. Chen pulled out an old laptop from his backpack. Despite working at McDonald's, he had managed to keep his coding equipment, though it was far from the high-end machines Google provided. He opened a simple-looking program and turned the screen toward Pichai. I call it Localift. It uses basic AI to automatically manage a business's entire online presence. No technical knowledge required. Pichai watched as Chen demonstrated the program. With just a few clicks, the system could create and update business listings across multiple platforms, respond to customer reviews using natural language processing, optimize search engine visibility, and even suggest the best times to post content based on customer engagement patterns. The magic is in the simplicity, Chen said, his eyes bright with the passion that Pichai remembered from their Google days. A business owner only needs to answer a few questions, provide some basic information about their business, and the system handles everything else. Pichai was impressed. The interface was clean and intuitive, the kind of design that took real insight to create. But what really caught his attention was the underlying architecture. Chen had built a sophisticated system that hid its complexity behind an extremely user-friendly interface. How far along is it? Pichai asked, scrolling through the program's features. It's been in beta with 15 local businesses for the past 6 months, Chen replied. I offered it to them for free to get feedback. The results have been promising. He pulled up a dashboard showing metrics from the test businesses. On average, they had seen a 40% increase in online visibility and a 27% increase in customer engagement. For some businesses, this had directly translated to increased revenue. One restaurant owner told me she's had to hire 2 more staff because of the increased business, Chen said with pride. She was about to close her doors before. Why haven't you tried to get funding for this? Pichai asked. It's clearly viable. Chen's smile faded. I tried approaching a few venture capital firms, but, he gestured to his McDonald's uniform. Let's just say they weren't impressed by my current position. One investor actually laughed when I told him where I worked. Pichai frowned. Silicon Valley's obsession with appearances and pedigrees often meant that good ideas were overlooked if they came from unexpected sources. Here was a perfect example. Besides, Chen continued, most investors wanted me to make it more complex, add premium features that small businesses would have to pay extra for. That defeats the whole purpose. I want this to be accessible to everyone, especially the mom and pop shops struggling to compete with big chains. As Chen spoke, Pichai noticed something else. Despite his circumstances, Chen hadn't lost his vision or principles. He still believed in technology as a tool to help people, not just to make money. What about your job at McDonald's? Pichai asked. How do you find time for all this? I work on it between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. most nights, Chen said with a tired smile. Not ideal, but it's the only time I have. Pichai checked his watch. He had already been away from the office longer than planned, but what he had seen was too important to ignore. Making a quick decision, he closed the laptop and handed it back to Chen. Robert, I'd like you to come to my office tomorrow morning. There's something I want to discuss with you. That evening, Pichai couldn't stop thinking about Robert Chen and his project. As his driver took him back to Google headquarters, he stared out the window at the passing San Francisco streets, his mind far from the quarterly reports waiting on his desk. What struck Pichai most wasn't just the quality of Chen's work. The local lift was impressive, but the resilience of the man himself. Despite personal tragedy and professional setbacks, Chen had continued creating, innovating, and finding ways to help others. That spirit was exactly what had made him valuable at Google years ago. Back in his office, Pichai canceled his last 2 meetings of the day. He needed time to think. He pulled up Chen's old personnel file and reviewed his achievements during his time at Google. The record was outstanding. Multiple successful projects, glowing performance reviews, and several patents to his name. There had never been any question about his abilities or his character. He picked up his phone and called Sofia Martinez, the head of Google's small business division. Sophia, I need your honest opinion on something, he said after brief greetings. He spent the next 15 minutes describing Chen's Localift platform and its potential impact. It sounds promising, Martinez said when he finished. Actually, it sounds like exactly what we've been trying to build for the past 2 years. Our team has been struggling with the user interface, making it simple enough for non-technical users while powerful enough to be effective. That's what I thought, Pichai replied. What would you say if I told you the person who created it currently works at McDonald's? There was a pause on the line. I'd say I want to meet this person immediately, and I'd wonder how we missed them in our hiring. Pichai thanked her and ended the call. Next, he reached out to Thomas Wong in the legal department to discuss options for bringing Chen's project into Google while ensuring the former director would be properly compensated and credited for his work. By 8 p.m., Pichai had the outline of a plan. He left the office and drove home, where his wife was waiting with dinner. You're distracted tonight, she observed as they ate. A new crisis at work. Pichai shared the story of finding Robert Chen at McDonald's. His wife listened carefully, nodding occasionally. So what are you going to do? She asked when he finished. The obvious thing would be to offer him his old job back, Pichai said. He was excellent at Google before. But you're thinking something else might be better, his wife finished for him. Pichai nodded. I'm not sure if he wants to come back as just another director. And honestly, his project deserves special attention. It could help millions of small businesses if properly developed and distributed. Later that night, as Pichai prepared for bed, he made his final decision. It wasn't the conventional choice, but he believed it was the right one, not just for Google, but for Chen himself. The next morning, Chen arrived at Google headquarters precisely at 9 a.m. He had taken the day off from McDonald's, telling his manager he had a family emergency. He wore his best clothes, a navy blue suit that now hung slightly loose on his frame, a white shirt, and a red tie. It was the same outfit he had worn to his last job interview 8 months earlier. The receptionist directed him to Pichai's office on the top floor. As he rode the elevator up, Chen tried to calm his racing thoughts. What did Pichai want? Was this just a courtesy meeting because of their past connection, or was there something more? When the elevator doors opened, Pichai himself was waiting, a warm smile on his face. Robert, thank you for coming. I've been thinking about your project all night, and I have a proposal for you. Something I've never offered anyone before. Pichai led Chen into his spacious office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the San Francisco Bay. The view was breathtaking, but Chen barely noticed it. His attention was fixed on the Google CEO, wondering what this meeting could possibly be about. Please, sit down, Pichai said, gesturing to a comfortable chair across from his desk. Instead of sitting behind his desk, Pichai took the chair next to Chen, eliminating the barrier between them. Chen sat stiffly, his hands resting on his knees. Despite having once been a director at this very company, he now felt like an outsider. The past 2 years had changed him, made him more cautious, less confident. I've been thinking about Localift, Pichai began. It's exactly what millions of small businesses need. The simplicity of the interface, combined with the power of the backend. It's remarkable work, especially considering the circumstances under which you created it. Thank you, Chen replied, uncertain where this was heading. Pichai leaned forward. I could offer you your old job back. You were an excellent director, and Google would benefit from having you return. He paused. But I don't think that's the right move for you or for your project. Chen's expression showed surprise. If not his old job, then what? I'm proposing something different, Pichai continued. Google will acquire Localift, but you won't just get a check and a pat on the back. We want to create a new division focused entirely on small business empowerment, with Localift as its flagship product. And we want you to lead it. Chen stared at Pichai, momentarily speechless. Lead a division? But I've been working at McDonald's for the past year. I've been out of the tech industry. And yet you created something better than our teams with all their resources, Pichai interrupted. Your time away from the industry might actually be your greatest strength. You understand what real businesses need, not what Silicon Valley thinks they need. Pichai stood up and walked to a whiteboard on the wall. He drew a simple organizational chart. The division would start small, you, plus a team of engineers, designers, and business specialists. You report directly to me for the first year while we get things established. Your compensation would include base salary, stock options, and a percentage of revenue generated by the platform. Chen's mind was racing. This wasn't just a job offer, it was the opportunity of a lifetime. But concerns immediately surfaced. What about my daughter? Any position at this level would require long hours, travel. Pichai nodded. I understand your concerns. We'll structure the role to give you flexibility. Remote work when needed, no required travel for the first 6 months, and core hours that align with your daughter's school schedule. Chen was silent, processing this unexpected turn of events. There's something else, Pichai added softly. Maria's medical bills. I know they must have been substantial. Chen looked down. I still have about $180,000 in debt from her treatments. The acquisition package for Localift would more than cover that, Pichai said. We value the platform at several million, based on its potential market impact. Chen took a deep breath. It was almost too much to take in. Yesterday, he had been making French fries and worrying about paying his rent. Today, he was being offered the chance to lead a new division at one of the world's most powerful companies. Why? Chen finally asked. Why go to all this trouble for me? Pichai's expression grew serious. Because talent and character matter more than circumstances. Because your story could have been anyone's story, including mine, and because Localift deserves to reach its full potential. He extended his hand. So, what do you say, Robert? Are you ready to come back, not to your old position, but to something new we'll build together? Chen looked at the offered hand, thinking of his daughter, of Maria, of the long nights coding after exhausting shifts at McDonald's. Then he reached out and shook Pichai's hand firmly. Yes, he said. I'm ready. The following Monday, Robert Chen walked through the Google campus with a visitor badge clipped to his shirt. It felt strange being back, like returning to a childhood home that remained familiar yet somehow different. Employees hurried past, absorbed in conversations about code and deadlines, exactly as he remembered. The news of his appointment had not yet been announced. For now, he was just a visitor being escorted by Sofia Martinez from the small business division. She had been briefed on the situation and was eager to see Localift in action. We've set up a temporary office for you on the 3rd floor, Sofia explained as they walked. It's not much, but it should work until the official announcement next week. Chen nodded, still processing the rapid change in his life. Just 3 days ago, he had submitted his resignation to his manager at McDonald's. The woman had been surprised but wished him well. His coworkers had thrown him a small goodbye party in the break room, complete with a cake that read "Good luck, Robert," in blue frosting. Telling Lily had been the most emotional moment. At first, she hadn't believed him. "Dad, stop joking," she had said, looking up from her homework at their small kitchen table. "It's true, Lily. I'll be leading a new division at Google, and the best part is we can pay off Mom's medical bills and move to a better apartment." Lily had stared at him for a long moment before bursting into tears and throwing her arms around him. Mom would be so proud, she had whispered against his shoulder. Now, as Chen followed Sophia into a meeting room, those emotions were carefully tucked away. Today was about business, about proving that Pichai's faith in him wasn't misplaced. 5 people sat around the table: 2 engineers, a designer, a marketing specialist, and a business analyst. These would be the core of his new team, handpicked by Sophia based on their skills and experience with small business products. "Everyone, this is Robert Chen," Sophia announced. "As you know, he'll be heading up our new small business initiative." The team members nodded politely, their expressions revealing a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Chen didn't blame them. They were probably wondering why an outsider had been brought in to lead such an important project. "Before we begin, I'd like to show you something," Chen said, opening his laptop. "This is Localift, the platform that will form the foundation of our division." For the next 30 minutes, Chen demonstrated the system he had built during those late nights after McDonald's shifts. As the demonstration progressed, the skeptical looks around the table changed to interest, then to genuine excitement. "You built this by yourself?" asked one of the engineers, leaning forward to get a better view of the screen. "Yes," Chen replied, "though it's still rough around the edges." "Rough around the edges?" The designer laughed. "This interface is more intuitive than anything we developed internally. Users actually understand what to do without a manual." The marketing specialist was already taking notes. "The small businesses I work with would love this. They're constantly frustrated by how complicated current tools are." By the end of the meeting, the initial awkwardness had disappeared. The team was buzzing with ideas on how to expand and improve Localift, each person seeing possibilities from their unique perspective. As they filed out of the room, promising to reconvene the next day with more detailed plans, Sophia stayed behind. "That went better than I expected," she said with a smile. Chen closed his laptop. "They're good people. Talented." "Yes, but they're also notoriously difficult to impress. Yet you've had them excited within minutes." She paused. "I think Pichai made the right choice." As Chen packed up his things, he felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time, a sense of belonging, of purpose. The path ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in 2 years, he was looking forward to the future. That night, he took Lily out for dinner to celebrate. As they sat in a small Italian restaurant, nicer than anywhere they had been able to afford recently, Chen watched his daughter happily twirling pasta on her fork and thought, "We're going to be okay, Maria. We're finally going to be okay." 6 months had passed since Robert Chen's return to Google. The small temporary office on the 3rd floor had been replaced by a spacious area on the 5th floor, now home to 23 team members working on what had officially been named Google Localift. The project had moved from development to beta testing with remarkable speed. Chen stood at the front of the conference room, presenting the latest results to Pichai and the executive team. The data on the screen told a powerful story. Over 5,000 small businesses across the country were now using the beta version of Localift, with stunning results. On average, these businesses had seen a 47% increase in online visibility and a 32% increase in new customers. "The feedback has been overwhelmingly positive," Chen explained, clicking to the next slide. "Many users tell us they tried other digital marketing tools before, but gave up because they were too complicated or time-consuming. With Localift, they're seeing results without having to become tech experts." Pichai nodded, clearly pleased. "What about the competition? Have they responded yet?" "They're scrambling," Chen replied with a small smile. 2 major companies have announced simplified versions of their existing tools, but they're still just putting new interfaces on old systems. They don't understand that we built Localift from the ground up with simplicity as the foundation, not an afterthought. After the meeting, Pichai asked Chen to stay behind. When the room had emptied, the Google CEO leaned back in his chair. "You've exceeded all expectations, Robert. The board is impressed, and more importantly, the small businesses using Localift are thriving." Chen accepted the compliment with a nod. "The team is exceptional. They've embraced the vision completely." "And how are things at home?" Pichai asked. Chen's face brightened. "Good. We moved to a nice apartment closer to Lily's school. Her grades are up, and she's talking about applying to Stanford next year." "And the medical bills?" "Paid in full," Chen said, his voice softening. "I can finally visit Maria's grave without that weight hanging over me." Piquet stood and walked to the window. "I've been thinking about the next phase. Localift is ready to move beyond beta. We want to make it available worldwide, to every small business that needs it." Chen nodded. "My team has been preparing for the global rollout. We'll need to expand, of course, especially for language support and regional business practices." "That's what I wanted to discuss," Pichai said, turning back to face Chen. "The board has approved a significant expansion of your division. You'll have the resources to triple your team and establish regional offices in key markets." Chen sat back, momentarily overwhelmed. It was a level of responsibility he hadn't anticipated so soon. "There's more," Pichai continued. "We want to make Localift accessible to businesses that can't afford traditional marketing tools. For businesses in developing regions or underserved communities, we're creating a subsidized version at minimal cost." This caught Chen by surprise. "Subsidized? That wasn't in our business plan." Piquet smiled. "No, it wasn't. It's something I'd added. Your story reminded me why I got into technology in the first place, to make powerful tools accessible to everyone, not just those who can afford them." Chen understood immediately. His own journey, from success to struggle and back again, had shown him how thin the line could be between thriving and surviving. Now he had the chance to help others navigate that line. "When do we start?" he asked. "Immediately," Pichai replied. "I've already approved the budget. Your team can begin hiring next week." As Chen left the meeting, his phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "How did it go, Dad?" He smiled as he typed his reply. "Better than I ever imagined. Let's celebrate tonight." Walking through the Google campus toward his office, Chen passed the window of a McDonald's across the street. He paused for a moment, looking at the employees inside taking orders and preparing food. 6 months ago, that had been him, not because he lacked ability or drive, but because life had thrown him an unexpected curve. He silently thanked Pichai for seeing beyond his circumstances to his potential. Then he continued walking, his mind already turning to the global expansion of Localift and all the small businesses waiting for a tool that could change their futures. 1 year to the day after Sundar Pichai had walked into that McDonald's and recognized Robert Chen, Google hosted a special event at its headquarters. The main auditorium was filled with small business owners, tech journalists, and Google employees. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement as people whispered about the announcement to come. At exactly 10 a.m., Pichai walked onto the stage to enthusiastic applause. He smiled and waited for the room to quiet down. "Today marks an important milestone for Google," he began. 1 year ago, we started a journey to make powerful digital tools truly accessible to small businesses everywhere. I'm proud to announce that as of this morning, Google Localift has officially reached 1 million active users worldwide. The audience erupted in cheers. On a large screen behind Pichai, a counter displayed the number, 1 million. But numbers don't tell the whole story. Pichai continued when the applause died down. What matters are the people behind those numbers, the restaurant owners, the local shops, the service providers who can now compete effectively in the digital marketplace without needing technical expertise or large marketing budgets. He gestured toward the side of the stage. "To tell you more about Localift and its future, I'd like to introduce the person who made all this possible, the Senior Vice President of Google's Small Business Division, Robert Chen." Chen walked onto the stage amid thunderous applause. He looked different from the tired man in a McDonald's uniform Pichai had encountered a year ago. Now he stood tall and confident in a well-fitted suit, his face relaxed and healthy. "Thank you, Sundar," Chen said, shaking Pichai's hand before turning to the audience. "When I created the first version of Localift, I was working the late shift at McDonald's and coding through the night on an old laptop. I never imagined it would reach 1 million businesses around the world. Chen clicked a remote, and the screen behind him changed to show a map with glowing dots representing Localift users across the globe. Today, we're taking the next step. I'm pleased to announce Localift Community, a program that will bring our tools to underserved small businesses at minimal or no cost. For every paid subscription, Google will sponsor 5 businesses in developing regions or struggling communities. The audience responded with more applause, even louder than before. This isn't just about technology, Chen continued. It's about opportunity. Every small business owner deserves the chance to succeed, regardless of their technical skills or economic circumstances. After the presentation, Chen met with a group of small business owners who had been invited to share their Localift success stories. Among them was Mrs. Patel, the owner of a small Indian restaurant in Chicago. Before Localift, I was thinking of closing my restaurant, she told Chen, her eyes bright with emotion. Now I have customers coming from across the city. My daughter doesn't have to work 2 jobs anymore to help me pay the bills. As the event wound down, Pichai found Chen standing alone by the window, looking out at the campus. Quite a journey, Pichai said, joining him. Chen nodded. I keep thinking about that day at McDonald's. If you hadn't walked in, if you hadn't recognized me. If you hadn't been brave enough to keep creating despite everything, Pichai added. Later that evening, Chen drove to a middle school in San Francisco where Lily was giving a presentation about careers in technology. He slipped into the back of the classroom just as she began speaking. My dad always told me that what matters isn't where you are, but what you do with the opportunities you have, Lily said to her classmates. A year ago, he was working at McDonald's. Today, he runs a division at Google that helps millions of people. As Chen listened to his daughter speak with such pride and confidence, he felt a sense of completion. The circle that had begun with loss and struggle had transformed into something beautiful and meaningful, not just for him and Lily, but for the million small business owners whose lives were changing because he had refused to give up. When Lily finished her presentation and spotted him in the back, her face lit up with a smile that reminded him so much of Maria. In that moment, Chen knew with absolute certainty that his late wife would be proud of what they had built from the ashes of their shared tragedy.